And coverage with Nate Schmidt and James Bonneville on National Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, or afternoon. I guess I should say it is noon time, Eastern Standard, 11/10/2024. We are college football week 11. This is man coverage with Knoxville Nate Digital and James Bonneville. We are coming to you live to talk a little bit about a game we love so much in college football. Pretty good day yesterday of slate of games. Yeah, I have to take a little bit of a take off of the college football game day show, which I hate listening to, but I did listen to it on the way over here. And they were talking about how, what we want with professional sports is parity. And now we have basically college football is a professional sport. These guys are getting paid to play, and there's free agency. I mean, let's just be honest, there's nonstop free agency with the transfer portal, and there's no trades, but guys can go to whichever team they want pretty much. So we've got professional sports, and I think that's one of the reasons that we're seeing so much parity. James, do you agree with that statement or no?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there were more crazy losses this past weekend than I've seen in some time. I mean, if you had told me 3 weeks ago that UCLA would beat Iowa, I would have said you're batshit crazy. Fresno State losing to Air Force, Rutgers beating Minnesota. I mean, go down the line. I mean, we're not even going to be touching those games today. And yeah, I mean, now it's just survive and don't get hurt.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, we've talked about it before on this show, the days of Bama and Clemson and Georgia having 3 5-stars, at each position isn't happening anymore. Those guys don't stick around and wait to play. Occasionally a guy will contribute a little bit his freshman year and maybe not play a ton, but stick around and wait till he's a sophomore. But a lot of times guys, they want to play right away. And even guys, they don't play maybe their freshman year, they're gone and they go somewhere else their second season. It's just, there's no more of this, what's the word I'm looking for? The
continuity?
Continuity with rosters. It's like college basketball now. You look at a college basketball roster one year, and the next year it's almost always completely different. And I'm talking about even the starting lineups. You got maybe 2-3 guys maybe left over from last year's team, and that's what we're seeing. I think the dynasty era is over. And,
well, it's funny. I was thinking about this yesterday, prepping for the show. I could sense how our show is going to change, because during the off season, we're going to be looking at those group of 5 teams. And because let's be honest, how many of those group of 5 teams, they're there their freshman and sophomore year, and they're at a Power 5 team their junior and senior year.
Yeah. Well, that makes it very hard too for these, group of 5 teams, even, the FCS teams. If they have a kid who's really good, they're gone. And these guys know that, but I think it's changed how they recruit, because going after these tremendous ceiling kids is not really smart for them, because they develop them and then they play for a year and they're gone.
Yeah.
I use that the Jared Verse example.
Cam Ward.
Yeah, Cam Ward example. It just goes on and on. They play 1 year at a smaller school and then they're outie right after that. So anyway, let's get to the games, because I've got a lot of thoughts. I sat and watched the Georgia Ole Miss game, and I took notes on my thoughts because I really wanted to to watch these two teams play each other, because I've watched both these teams quite a bit this season. But watching them play each other, I think was a great way to get a good take on it. And first off, I thought Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss Jr. had a pretty good game plan. I mean, I was pouring down rain, and I was like, oh, man, Ole Miss might be in trouble because I can't sling the ball around. They still slung the ball around. Mm-hmm. And they ran the ball, and they played good defense. This Ole Miss team looks very different than the Ole Miss teams I've seen in the past. They still have 2 losses, but this is a big-time game to go up against Georgia like this at home, right after we saw what Georgia did to Texas, where they just, busted whichever quarterback was out there. They couldn't really get home because Jackson Dart was either getting the ball out of his hand or the O-line was holding up. My main thoughts on this game were, Carson Beck was bad again. This guy's been terrible for 3 weeks now. And it's almost to the point where I could see them making a move and taking him out. I never thought I would say that, but I think if they want to win, they may have to do that. I'm not sure what your thoughts are on that, but it's not only just Carson Beck. They're wide receivers, and we mentioned this at the beginning of the year. They're wide receivers. They're skill guys. They suck. I mean, I don't see anybody that scares me or that can get a 50-yard touchdown. So that's it. And then Jackson Dart looked like for real to me. And then Ole Miss is leading the nation in sacks, and that's because their D-line gets after it. James, what did you think about this game with Georgia and Ole Miss, and do you agree with any of my takes there?
Well, absolutely. I mean, you look at two teams that are in really different trajectories. Over the last 4 weeks, Georgia has been, I guess the word would be bad. Yeah. I'm trying to be nice about it, but I mean, Carson Beck, we were talking about being Heisman caliber. The last 4 weeks, he's had 5 touchdown passes to 9 interceptions. I'm sorry, I said this before the season. What the hell were you doing not going pro last year when you'd been a top 10 pick? Now you are maybe going in the 4th round. And if you still got eligibility, stay in college, please. Because I look at Georgia right now, and I see Michigan. An offense that Ole Miss's strategy yesterday was stop the run. I mean, the longest running plays yesterday were, guess what? 12 yards by Dylan Bell, and then a 9-yard run by Carson Beck. What's the one name you're not hearing in there? Travis Etienne.
Yeah, he's banged up, man.
That offensive line is just a mess.
Yeah, the offensive line is no good. Etienne is obviously hurt because he doesn't look the same. This team was different when Etienne was healthy and was making waves. And Frazier, the other running back, he had a bad. I think he fumbled it twice actually. He only lost one of them, but he fumbled it twice, and he just wasn't looking the same. I give a lot of credit to this Ole Miss front. Yeah. They were in the backfield. They were making plays. They were getting in Beck's face. He didn't have a ton of time to throw even when he wanted to. Yeah. And it just did not look good. And
look over the past 2 weeks, Ole Miss is getting, is catching their stride now, because let's be honest, through the first 8 games, they just weren't good. You lost to Kentucky. I'm sorry. They were literally there were games that were close that shouldn't have been close. And everybody's going to talk about the early games. You played a cupcake non-conference schedule. Your toughest game was what? Wake freaking Forest? I mean,
yeah, I just I kind of wrote them off, I guess. I should be honest. I kind of wrote them off after the second loss. And since that time, they have been playing a lot better. And I guess I need to rethink that, because they are a legit team right now, and they're going to win out. I mean, the rest of their schedule is cake. Walking out of this, they play Mississippi State and I forget who the other team. Florida. They play. Thank you, Florida and Mississippi State. So I see them winning out, and potentially, depending on who else loses, getting to that SEC championship game potentially, and that leads us right into the next game. Just sticking in the SEC here with LSU and Bama. Brian Kelly is undefeated at night, at LSU, and that's a tough team to beat in Baton Rouge. I mean, the big red stick is usually beating people's bottoms, and it was the other way around last night. I mean, it was not even really a game.
I think Alabama just scored again right now.
I mean, they could have. I mean, it was embarrassing. 42-13 was the final. Jalen Milroe essentially was running free all day long. He didn't even have to throw it, James. Yep. I mean, he didn't have to throw it, and I don't know. I don't know if this says more about Bama, or it says more about LSU. I kind of think it says more about LSU. I think LSU has got a big problem with their defense because their defense sucks. Weeks is the only guy on that defensive team, number 40, I think he is, who I would, draft in the first 3 rounds. Their defensive line, I mean, think about all the great D linemen that have come out at Dorsey, Spears, Booger. I mean, name them. There's so many good defensive linemen that have come out of their defensive backs, Morris Claiborne, Stingley. I mean, keep going. There's so many guys that have been first-round talents out of LSU. I don't see any of those guys on this defense, James. Where the hell are they?
Well, there is one major one, but he didn't play last night, and he will be a first-rounder, but I don't care if the guy stood on his head and was doing head spins. It wouldn't have mattered last night, and that was Harold Perkins being out.
Yeah.
I mean, he's obviously a first-rounder, but, I mean –
I just meant the guys on the field last night.
Yeah, last night it was just a disaster. I mean, I go back to, the Saban era, the Miles era. What was their standard bearer? They were always incredible at the cornerback position and on the D-line, and they were ridiculously deep. They were going to get after you. They don't have that. They just don't have that. This is a team that is basically Garrett Nussmeier, Perkins, and Lacey if he's doing. I mean, they threw 42 passes last night in pouring freaking rain. I mean, they got beat by USC in the beginning of the year. I mean, honestly, you look at their schedule, it's like, who have they beat? Who was that game except maybe South Carolina that you could sit there and hang your hat on? Ole Miss, but that's when Ole Miss was playing like crap.
Yeah, I mean, that South Carolina game looks better and better considering how the Gamecocks are playing. But, I think LSU's gone the other way. I just don't like their I'm not in love with their offensive scheme, and their defense is just horrible. And
I feel bad for Garrett Nussmeier because he is a damn good quarterback surrounded by really below average players. I mean, Mason Taylor's good, but their offensive line isn't. Garrett Nussmeier, I'm shocked, was walking by the end of the game. Like, he was getting the crap kicked out of him.
And most of the time it was by Jahad Campbell. Mm-hmm. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that kid's name today because he was all over the field. I was just sitting there watching. I was like, who is number 11? My God. He's making every play. He finished the game with 3 tackles for loss. He had 12 tackles, 6 solo, a pass defense, and a sack and a half. And, he was more disruptive than that in this game. And I talk about first-round draft picks. I would take that guy in the first round right now just based on watching that game against LSU. He made life a living hell for Nussmeier. And it was hard for me. Everyone's been talking about how great Nussmeier is. It was hard for me to even see that watching that game last night. I don't think it was really his fault, but he didn't look good because he had no time to throw it. They couldn't even run the ball. And every time he went back to throw it, he was getting whacked. So LSU's done, in my opinion. That was an elimination game for them. And now they're 6-3. And we'll see how good a coach Brian Kelly is because, 6-3 with a 12-team playoff that you're not going to make, these guys could quit on him real quick. Not saying that's going to happen, but it could.
I will say, though, Jalen Milroe, I mean, let's be honest, was absolutely freaking amazing last night.
He was awesome.
I mean, quite frankly, he was doing everything that you could humanly possibly do.
He was legit. And in the last 2, he loves playing LSU, brother, because in the last 2 games, against LSU. He has run for like 300 yards. He's got 8 touchdowns. He had 4 touchdowns last night, 4 rushing touchdowns. And also, I believe, no, he didn't throw for one, but he had 4 rushing touchdowns, and he had 4 touchdowns last time. So that's 8 touchdowns in the last 2 games, which is
when you're giving up
15.4
a clip to their quarterback on the ground, you got problems. I mean, it literally, honestly, I look at Brian Kelly and what is I mean, you go back to his career everywhere else, going back to Grand Valley State, Central Michigan, Cincinnati, even Notre Dame. There was an identity to his programs. Now in Baton Rouge, what is that identity? I mean, maybe that Creole accent he somehow picked up driving south kind of killed that identity, because this is just not a team that I recognize. That's a Brian Kelly team.
It doesn't look like a Brian Kelly team. It really doesn't. And that's what I was kind of surprised about last night. I expected them to show up.
Yeah.
And I expected it to be a pretty good game, especially considering, this isn't the Bama we've seen. I mean, Nick Saban's long gone, and, we've seen some chinks in the armor from Alabama this year. So I expected LSU to play them tough, especially at home at night. And in Baton Rouge, I just expected it to be a lot more difficult. Let's get to I hate talking ACC football, but I guess we should. It's just a joke, man. I'm sorry if you're an ACC football fan and you're watching the show right now, but this conference is just a dumpster fire. And you're talking about, the number 1 ranked team coming out in the preseason was Florida State. They've lost like 15 games. They're embarrassing to watch, by the way. And, I understand the buyout is rich, but this guy's completely lost that team, and it's a joke. And, the marquee team, or supposed marquee team, was the Miami Hurricanes. And I'll give you that Cam Ward is pretty good, but the rest of that team doesn't really impress me at all. The wide receivers are a solid group, but I don't like their defense at all. And they got kind of exposed yesterday with Georgia Tech. Miami knew that Georgia Tech was going to run the football. I mean, they knew it.
Everybody did. I mean, quite frankly, if you didn't, you've been living under a freaking rock.
They knew they were going to run it.
Georgia Tech is the most weird freaking football team I've ever seen in my life. They win the games people think they're not going to win, and then lose the games you're like, what? How in the world did Georgia Tech lose that game? I mean, but you go 48 for 271 on the ground, 5.6 per carry. I mean, I'm sorry, Miami. If you're going to give up that many yards on the ground to Georgia Tech, you're going to have a real big problem come playoff time.
Yeah, what if you play somebody good? How many yards are they going to give up running? And they've lived their life on the edge for weeks, okay? I mean, they've just pulled off victories at the end because they've gone down. And as I mentioned to you, the way that Georgia Tech was kind of playing not to lose at the end, I have no doubt in my mind that Miami was going to go down and score there on that last drive had he not got sacked and fumbled the football. They were moving the ball. They had just, the Georgia Tech defense had pretty much given up at that point, considering they were just kind of playing prevent, and it was not a good look. But Miami is just a team that probably should have 3 losses right now. If you go back and look through their schedule, they came back and were able to pull a lot of those games out at the end. The Cal game is the one that I'm looking at specifically when I reference this. But Haynes King, is he a running back? Because I don't think I know he's kind of a quarterback, but they played 2 quarterbacks last night, and Haynes King would kind of come in and be a running back. And he carried the ball 20 times for 93 yards. And as we mentioned, they knew they were going to run it, and they could not stop him. And that was kind of embarrassing. Lots of coaching blunders, too. Mario, to me, sometimes just leaves me scratching my head with some of the decisions he makes. I don't know what you think about it.
Oh, I've literally, there are so many times I've sat there and scratched my head about, Mario, great recruiter.
Yes.
but like probably one of the worst game day coaches I've ever seen in my life. And that's why them being 9-0 just like boggles the freaking mind. This is not a game that surprises me. I mean, quite frankly, you look at this team, Cam Ward has been putting this team on its back, and I did not expect that. Like, I expected him to be very good this year, but I expected Damian Martinez to carry a lot of that load too as well. And he has not been used to the level I expected him to be used. I mean, honestly, Cam Ward reminds me so much of Charlie Ward during his days with Bobby Bowden at Florida State. I mean, just he can run, but he doesn't want to run. Like, there's this control to the game he has that is really special, but he gets hurt, man, they're in trouble. They're in real freaking trouble.
Yeah, Cam Ward is their, he's their whole team. I mean, in a game yesterday, which was not his best game, he threw for almost 350 yards and 3 touchdowns with no picks. I mean, this guy doesn't make many mistakes. That's why the fumble sack at the end was kind of crazy, because he doesn't usually turn the ball over that much, and he was just trying to make a play there. So I don't really put that on him. He was the reason they were coming back.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't know Haynes King, and this kid was a 5-star product coming out of high school, he was very ballyhooed. He just didn't fit in well at A&M during the Jimbo era. And let's be honest, there's a lot of players that didn't fit in the Jimbo era. I mean, how many people knew the word Devon Achane besides us talking about him? And now he's scoring touchdowns like it's going out of style in Miami right now.
Yeah, he's legitimate. And we're coming on the break here. But before we go to break, why don't we go ahead and talk a little bit about the Indiana-Michigan game? Because, I was interested to see this one, because I wanted to know, was Indiana going to go and drop 40 points on the Wolverines? Or, were we going to see the Hoosiers come back to life a little bit? First off, what the hell is going on at that stadium? It was full of people. They were all screaming. They were all wearing Indiana colors. I have never seen anything like this in my life.
Well, I have, but it's during basketball season. It's that stadium across the parking lot from the stadium their football team plays in. It is probably one of the greatest stories this year in college football. And how can you, besides being a Purdue fan, how can you not cheer for Indiana? This is the first time ever they've won 10 games in a season. Ever.
They had never won 9. And now they've won 10. And, I don't really know how good they are. I mean, I know they are a good football team. And yesterday, beating Michigan 20-15, is Michigan a great offensive football team? No. But to go, when Michigan had nothing to lose, essentially, coming into this game, and all the pressure was on the undefeated team in Indiana, and to go out there and play the way they did without even really having a huge offensive day, for their standards, 20 points is pretty minimal considering they've been dropping 40 left and right. They played tough. This is a team that can run the ball. This is a team that can play defense. And you just wouldn't. This ain't your father's Indiana Hoosiers, boys. This is a different ball team. And I've got to be honest with you, I never thought I would say this in my entire life, but I am nervous about playing them next week for my Buckeyes. I am nervous.
2 weeks. Remember, Indiana's got a week off, and you got that important game against Northwestern. So,
that's what I'm saying. They've got 2 weeks to prepare for Ohio State.
Yeah.
And with the coach that they have, he's going to have them ready to go, James.
Honestly, everybody's been talking about their offense, and Curtis Rourke was an absolute stud at Ohio for the Ohio Bobcats for years. Nobody knew about him because he played in the group of 5. Now at Indiana with Justice Ellison and Elijah Surratt, this is a really good team that they've cobbled together. But what people aren't talking about is this defense. This defense only gave up 20 points twice. And they were going after Davis Warren yesterday like they were going to try to steal his freaking lunch money. They were living in the backfield. He was running for his freaking life like Kevin McAllister in Home Alone. That was just freaking crazy. The defense won the game because their offense in the second half was a train wreck. outside of that punt return where they got that field goal, I mean, what did they do? Michigan really kind of dominated on the defensive side in the second half, but Indiana's defense was just freaking lights out.
Yeah, I mean, to, hold the Michigan Wolverines to 69 yards on 34 carries, that's pretty impressive. I mean, Mullings is a good running back, no matter what you say. Donovan Edwards, I'm not sure what's going on with him because he shows up some weeks and doesn't others, but he's still a good football player. And, to hold that team to 69 yards rushing, I thought was just a telltale sign of what this Indiana defense is. I think it's one of the more underrated units in the country.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody keeps talking about their offense because they were putting up video game numbers for a while, but their defense has been the difference maker for them. And honestly, there's some people saying that if they lose to Ohio State, that they may not make the playoff. Are you literally smoking crack? Because how do you not put Indiana in the playoffs, even if they lose to Ohio State?
Yeah, I mean, their schedule. I mean, there's question marks on this schedule, bro. I mean,
I don't disagree, but it's not like they were close games. They curb stomped teams.
They did.
Curb stomp.
They did. They put up 77 points in one game. They've scored over 30 points in every single game this year. They've scored 31 or more in every game this year, except for the Michigan game.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the Indiana-Ohio State game is going to be a lot. I mean, when's the last time people got excited for an Indiana-Ohio State game?
I remember it being close like once.
Yeah.
And it wasn't supposed to be. It just ended up being that way.
But I mean, people getting excited about it ahead of time.
Yeah, no, never. And the last time I remember Indiana even being competitive throughout the season, was like 1987 with Anthony Thompson. Yeah, I mean, and that was just because of him and how good he was. It wasn't like they had a gangbusters team. So, I've got to go ahead and just hand this guy the Big Ten Coach of the Year.
How is he not National Coach of the Year? They might as well freaking give it to him now.
He may be. I mean, he may be. And I don't even care what happens on the way out because they've got Ohio State left and they've got Purdue left. So they're winning 11 games. I mean, there's no doubt they're going to beat Purdue. I would bet a lot of my change on that game because they're not going to lose to Purdue. I don't care what anybody says. So
they're going to curb stomp them.
You win 11 games at Indiana. That's pretty spectacular. And where do you see them sitting now? In the conference picture, because I don't know really where to even rank them.
I think that may be a question we may have to have for our guest when he comes on after the break. Don't you think?
I think so, because I'm stubbed about where to where to get him, but definitely we'll dig into that here in a minute. And once again, obviously you're watching Man Coverage with the National Streaming Sports Network, and make sure to check out SeatGeek. Use promo code NSS for $20 off on your next purchase.
Football season is here, and SeatGeek is my go-to for buying tickets. Now with SeatGeek, every single ticket is backed with their buyer guarantee. We've all had plans change, and when you can't make it to the big game, SeatGeek has you covered. They're the only ticketer that allows you to return your tickets ahead of the event for credit with SeatGeek swaps. So when things come up, I know that my tickets won't go to waste. So what are you waiting for? Download the SeatGeek app to maximize your possibilities and shop live events with confidence.
Wow. All right. So go to SeatGeek.com right now, get your tickets, and use promo code NSS, $20 off. That's our gift for you for looking at our ugly faces and listening to us talk about college football. We have got a guest coming on with us today who we're going to dig in pretty hardcore on the Big Ten. But before we do, I do want to talk a little bit more just about, one more game in the Big 12. The Big 12 is just kind of a mess. And I don't even know. I don't know.
That is so kind to call the Big 12 a mess.
I mean, I don't know who's going to win any of the games. you know, no matter who's playing, I have no clue who's going to win the game at the end. And, you know, yesterday, Texas Tech goes up. I think they were up 13-0. And then, you know, Colorado just got rolling, and it was pretty nutso. So I don't really know where to get to on the Big 12, but we're going to have to talk about that before the end of the show and figure out what we're doing. But I'm going to go ahead and drop our guest in now, and we're going to talk a little Big Ten action with Bryant Browning here.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Hey, how you doing, Bryant?
Man, I can't complain. I'm loving the jersey, man. That's like that's authentic right there, man.
That's game worn, man. That's Keith Rivers from USC. Played for the Bengals too back in the day. I try and rock the game worn jerseys every day if I can, and definitely on this show. But unfortunately, USC might need me out there at this point with what they got going on. They are not loving their entrance into the Big Ten, Bryant. And
I mean, it started off good. It started off promising, right? And then it fell flat.
Then reality came into play.
Yeah,
it's kind of like remember when Nebraska came into the conference and we kept hearing about they're gonna dominate the conference, and then the sun rose and they came out of their night, and reality came to play.
This is big boy football over here, and I think some of these teams are finding it out. Oregon looks pretty good so far, but let's talk a little bit about our Buckeyes because yesterday went pretty well. I think 45-0. I mean, I know Purdue's struggling, but I saw some things that I wanted to see. The main question I've got for you is, we're down a couple of left tackles here. What do you think about this O-line at this point? Kicking out Donovan to left tackle, bringing in 75, the left guard who'd been injured, Hinsman, and inserting him. How do you think this unit has played since the turnaround, and how good do you think they can be playing out the rest of the schedule?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I guess first thing I would say, I'm getting these guys an A+, because it all just goes down to last week against Penn State, getting the ball back with 5:21 on the clock, and us just running the ball. I think 11 plays, running the clock out from there. So it's like, I mean, I haven't seen anything like that under the Coach Day era, I think ever, under his tenure here as head coach. So very impressive performance there. Obviously, when you take a guard and you put him at tackle, right, what everyone concerned is what pass pro.
Yep.
And Donovan Jackson, obviously, he went out there. He battled well against Abdul Carter, but as we know, he did give up 2 sacks. And obviously, Abdul Carter, he's not the guy to play around with, right?
No.
He's most likely a first top 15 draft pick, come at the defensive end position, outside linebacker role. And I don't even blame Donovan Jackson for that. I blame the coaches for that. Why did you guys even put him in that situation? I guess they had to test it out to see, but that's obviously not, it wasn't in his favor. Yesterday, obviously Purdue, a lot. They don't have an Abdul Carter on their defensive end position, and Donovan Jackson played well in the pass pro situations. Long term, I'm still a little leery of it, just because I just know what Donovan Jackson is comfortable with. I know going into the Penn State game, he said he's gonna do everything he needs to do for the offensive line and things of that nature. And against guys like Purdue, I think he'll be fine, right? But competition is going to pick back up. There's always a chance that we might have to play Oregon again. We know that they have another top-end pass rusher. If we play Penn State again, obviously Carter will still be there. So I don't know. I like him staying in that guard position. Obviously, Josh Simmons out for the season. And we played Zim Malowski there against Nebraska, where the offensive line had by far their worst game of the season.
Yeah, that was not good.
not good. But from watching Zim play, he is an offensive tackle. He does need to sharpen up some things. I think the speed of the game kind of got to him a little bit, but I think he does have the ability to do it. So what we're actually going to do, I don't know. I feel like we're actually going to keep things as is, keep Donovan Jackson there, keep Hinsman at guard. But I guess if it was me, I think I would like to see Zen get back out there just because I just feel it makes us a better unit overall.
Yeah, and just a follow up to that is, do you have any info on his injury? Is he healthy or is he still?
He's still injured. So this past week, I seen him on the sideline in street clothes. So he didn't have equipment on. So I'm assuming whatever took place is still bothering him. Obviously, it's college, right? We don't get much news, right? So we assume it looked like lower body, so ankle, knee situation for him getting rolled up. So not sure the time frame on things, but like I say, him being on the sidelines kind of tells me what he didn't have a surgery, right? So hopefully it's something that's a more of a week to week type of situation. But we'll just kind of have to see. So.
We've talked about this before in the past, but you look back at Ohio State throughout the history, going from Woody on up. The offensive line has been really the standard bearer of the team, kind of like Penn State's been linebacker U. The offensive line has always been that standard bearer. But now you look at Ryan Day, it just seems like the recruiting isn't to the same standard. I mean, there's so much more emphasis putting on going after those top flight receivers than there is going after that top offensive line. And not only that, the development. I mean, you're seeing more going to the portal to supplement that, when in the past, I mean, you could name a freaking all-star team of past Ohio State offensive linemen throughout the eras from Cooper on up. I mean, what are your thoughts on their recruiting strategy from going this point moving forward?
Yeah, so I completely agree. It needs to. I want to say it needs to be better, but I also feel it needs to be, like you kind of stated, is more of a development thing more than anything, right? When it comes to once Coach Day kind of started running his own system, like you say, we're big time with the quarterbacks and wide receivers. We get them from all across the country, 5-star guys left and right from there. But we have not had that same success with the offensive line. Now I kind of say it's really in my opinion, there's two reasons for it. One, if you start looking at, the 5-star offensive linemen across the country, I feel like most of those guys tend to go somewhere where they're comfortable at, right? They're not so flashy that they just know that they could just kind of go anywhere and they would everything will work out for me. I feel like the offensive line position is more that you need to develop. So you go somewhere where you feel really comfortable with the other guys that's in the room. They're into the same things you're into. You see yourself being there for 3 or 4 years, comfortably growing and developing until you're that player that you want to be, right? And kind of take yourself on to the next level, to the NFL. So I say that to say we need to put more of an emphasis on Ohio and the Midwest when it comes to recruiting offensive linemen. I feel like over the last couple of years, that's what we've been doing. But now it's time to kind of develop those guys and kind of let them get out there and kind of, play, get the experience and actually go. Because like you said, I agree. Like, I just feel like on my podcast that I do with my friend Chimdy here in Ohio, I talk about all the time that, it's when I played and you start talking about us versus Michigan, there's one thing for sure, we felt like we was the better offensive line unit, right?
Yeah.
Like we felt like, going into that game, we're the better offensive line unit. We're going to go out there and when we play Michigan, we'll be able to show it, run the ball more than they can run the ball against us and kind of go out there and demonstrate that. The last couple of years, it's like almost a no-brainer that Michigan's offensive line, especially when we was losing, that their offensive line is a better unit than our offensive line. And I was just like, that was almost never the case when I played. So it's kind of twofold. The culture has to be there. Coach Day has to put an emphasis on it. And I feel like when it comes to building the line, you need to kind of, close the gate around the state and grab a couple guys surrounding, because I feel like that's what gives you your best opportunity to actually secure these guys, develop them, and then let them go out there on Saturdays and be able to perform at a top-tier model.
And just piggybacking off of that, Coach Fry takes a lot of heat. And, do you put this, I guess, lack of, big name offensive line recruiting, do you put that on him? Do you put that on, the rest of the guys that are out hitting the trail? I mean, where does the blame lie, I guess, because, that Paris Johnson Jr., and DeJuan Jones, I mean, those guys were legit. Two of the best offensive tackles I've seen come out of anywhere in a long time. And, we when they left, we just really haven't replaced them, I guess. I'm not as down on the unit as a whole as some other people are, but I do not see Thanos or Paris Johnson Jr. out there. So who do you you've been through the process. You've been recruited by these guys. Do you put this on the O-line coach or no?
No, to me it's a whole unit thing. So when I was coming out of school, your offensive line coach, like everybody, all the position coaches had areas, right? I don't think it's really like that anymore. But essentially, me in Northeast Ohio, that was Coach Fickle's area. So it was basically his main job to kind of, figure out who we're recruiting and kind of go up there for those visits. And then you would see the offensive line coach when you came to the school, and maybe they came up once, for like that in-home visit or so, things of that nature. But I just say, if we could get the 5-star receivers, if we wanted the guys across the nation, offensive line-wise, we should be able to kind of get them as well. I just think, you have to put the emphasis on it, come up with a plan to execute. But to your point, Paris Johnson is an Ohio kid. Yep. Thanos, he's from Indianapolis, right? So, once again, so we're Ohio, Midwest guys. Those are the guys that came in. And obviously, Paris Johnson was a special talent, right? He could have made it work anywhere. He'd have been a first-round draft pick. But Thanos, when he came, he was essentially a basketball player, right? He had to learn the culture and learn how to, be an offensive lineman and kind of learn how to go about his business. So don't blame Coach Fry. I just think collectively they have to do a better job at evaluating talent, right? Figure out what guys do they actually want, what guys actually fit what they're trying to do, and then go out there, get them, and understand you have to develop guys as well. And sometimes development is getting them out there on the field so they can actually do it on Saturday to get some live action to get them prepared.
No, that was my thoughts too. I just wanted you to say it because it means a lot more coming from you than me. James, go ahead, James.
No, I was going to say the same thing. Well, hey, honestly, now let's go into the Big Ten as a whole. Yeah. Granted, we're in a whole new world, no longer East, West, legends and leaders, whatever the hell they called it before those couple years. We got the whole freaking mosh pit down there. If you had to power rank today, like let's say the top 5 or hell, top 10, who do you put? Because it just seems like week to week, it's kind of like, what the hell?
All over the place, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Obviously, I'm biased. Ohio State is number 1. I know we lost to Oregon by a point, but I think we all seen that the mistakes that we made there. And we got our coach, right? We went to Oregon, and they had some very specific things to kind of make themselves be successful in that game that I don't think would happen twice. That's why I still say I feel like we're the best team. Obviously, Oregon is playing well. Who else you got playing well? Penn State is playing good, right? I think Ohio State we just kind of have a number, right, for every reason. They just can't figure out how to play offense against Ohio State, and kudos to our defense. But I still think Penn State is a very dangerous team here in the conference. Obviously, Indiana, right? The things that they've been doing. Before yesterday's game, I think they had an average win margin of like maybe 34 points. I know their strength of schedule has been very strong, but you got to go out there and execute and do it. And it's Indiana, right?
Yeah, so it's Indiana. Exactly.
You got to tip your cap to those guys for believing in Signetti and kind of playing at their minds. Obviously, yesterday was a kind of a come back to earth moment because Michigan kind of had played them to the wire. A Michigan team that I don't think is very good, so they're not on that list. But next, I'm thinking Wisconsin. I feel like they're still finding ways to stay competitive. Minnesota, obviously they had a tough loss yesterday to Rutgers, but I feel like PJ Fleck is always figuring out a way to kind of keep his guys playing relevant football and winning games. I believe Iowa lost to UCLA on Friday night, which is a shocker, but I think that's Iowa, right?
They can look like one moment the horrible the next. I mean,
they do that I feel like they do this every year. They start off strong, they play, well, they get ranked high, and then they just fall off. And I don't know if that's just their schedule gets harder. I don't know if they just can't sustain what they're doing, but I feel like they do that nonstop.
Yeah, and it's kind of right. They do that pretty frequently. Yeah, so I don't know. I think those are kind of the top guys right now. Obviously, USC, we know what they could do offensively, right? When they kind of get things together, so they always would be competitive. It's just for whatever reason they just kind of haven't fit it all the way together as we expect them to do. I think they get there, but I don't know.
You look at their line of scrimmage play, though. I mean, it is even on both sides. I mean, you look at their specialty guys. I mean, they're on par with Ohio State, but then their offensive line, it's like they bring a pea shooter to a gunfight. I mean, they're just getting the crap. I mean, when you get the crap kicked out of you by Maryland, who's not known for being the most physical team, that's when you got to look in the mirror and really ask yourself a question: what the hell am I doing wrong in life? I mean, I agree with you. Indiana, I think I'd put ahead of Penn State. It just seemed like Penn State's defense is legit. But you look at their running game and that Warren kid. I mean, really, what else do they have? Because Drew Allard is just,
I think Penn State's a good football team, and I think yesterday they proved it once again. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Going down the stretch. And Brian, I want to get your thoughts on this. This playoff. People have been begging for this for forever, and they do this obviously in the smaller divisions, but this is the first time we've seen this in big boy football. And I just want to get your thoughts on as a player, playing that many more games. How does that affect these kids going down the stretch when what if you make it to the conference championship game and then you have to play 4-5 playoff games? What is that going to look like for these kids and their bodies? And what is your thought, just going into this 12-team playoff for the first time?
Yeah, I think as a fan, I like it, right? You get to really get everybody in there, all the competitive teams, and really kind of figure out who's the best. But as a former player, it's like, man, like you stated, it's just too many games. Like it's too many games. So you're looking at, let's say you play with 12, like you said, you're looking at 17, 18 game seasons, which is the same as the NFL regular season. And obviously there is some NIL money coming in, so guys are receiving some change, right? But most guys are not, right? When it comes down to it, most guys are not. They might have enough to, eat decently and fill up their gas tank, due to NIL money. But most of them is not making, life changing money, right? When it comes to NIL. So I don't know. I don't like it. I think they need to figure it out, a way to have a 10. If they want, either let the championship games go and you play, it's a committee type of decision, maybe point-based type of decision. You kind of get your top guy to a championship game. But you need to figure out how to either let that go or you just cut the season down to 10 games and kind of take it from there. That's what the former player in me says. Just because I agree, it's just too many games.
I don't get the point of the conference championship game anymore. I don't see where the value is in that. Like, you take the conference champion and you put that, you give them a bye. I don't see why you have to play this extra game. That to me is confusing. And then, as you said,
Nate.
It's all about the money. I get that, but they're making good money on these TV contracts. It's not like losing that Big Ten championship game is gonna end all things.
Right.
I think they'll still be all right. But and James, I'll let you jump in with your question here. But I just wanted to follow up on that. Do you think there's really 12 teams that could win this thing, Brian? Because I don't.
Yeah, realistically, no, right? I mean, I haven't watched BYU a ton, right? But I know they're projected at like 4 for like a bye week right now. The season and off the last rankings, and it's like, can BYU really win a championship? Probably not, right?
No.
And then there was another team up there that was currently in the mix. Blanking on their name right now, but it was another team. I think whoever they projected Ohio State to play first in the first round.
Boise State.
Boise State, right? I mean, obviously they played Oregon tough, right? They probably played Oregon as tough as anybody else in the nation, right? They lost. We lost by a point to them. But is Boise really gonna, go on a 4-game stretch here with their running back with a Jency Ashton, running over everybody and winning? Probably not, right? Yeah. So, I agree. It's too many games. The playoffs will be fun, but it's just to me it just kind of just goes around just There's too many games. Too many games.
Well,
You look at the Big Ten, right? We most likely had three. Like right now, unless somebody has a huge upset, we most likely have three teams in the playoffs, right? And you most likely thinking wherever two teams make it to the championship, and then, like I said, I'm biased. I got Ohio State beat Indiana, so I figure Ohio State, Oregon, but Indiana still would make the playoffs even with a loss against Ohio State. I was like, yeah, that kind of makes some sense. But now Indiana almost get a reward for not playing in the Big Ten championship because they lost a game, but they still get a chance to win a national championship. And like, I'm not just second you guys. There's too many games. Conference championship is the easiest thing to eliminate, I feel like, at this point, for sure.
Well, don't you think at some point, because the NCAA finds a way to, find the turd in a pile of diamonds, that at some point you're going to see a team go to the national championship, and guess what? In a week, they're starting spring ball. When's the recovery going to happen? I mean, my God, it's like it never freaking – I mean, what are they going to start a summer season like the USFL too as well? I mean – I mean, don't you think this has just gotten crazy on how many games? I mean, do they not understand, do you think, the recovery that's needed for these players?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this is America, right? And it's all about the top dollar, right?
Lots of Benjamins.
If it makes sense money-wise, then essentially, to a lot of people, it makes the most sense. And I don't know, man. Like I said, obviously, everyone complains. First, what we have, we essentially, you play at a bowl game, pick the national champion, and they put in the national championship game, right? Then we kind of figure out who goes there. Then we're like, okay, we're gonna add a playoff. We go 14 playoffs. And everybody, 14's now there. Now we got a 12 thing. So it's like, I don't know. Like, where do you stop? Like,
whoever 13 is, they're going to complain like they do in the basketball tournament. And there's going to be some crackhead idea of, let's create the NIT too as well. So now we got another 14-team playoff with the next group of teams. I mean, it's like it never freaking ends.
Never ends. And obviously, and then this was the point I really kind of I don't like is that, the guys finish the seasons, right? You don't make the playoffs. You're not in the big game or whatever. And then you got guys say, I'm just gonna go ahead and get ready for the NFL now. Get ready for I'm not gonna play this last game. I'm gonna get ready for the NFL. And then you got a lot of guys in the media bash. Like,
I don't blame those guys at all, man. I wouldn't play them either.
Like, the games don't mean anything. It don't mean anything. It don't mean anything to you. No. And it's just another game. And they played a whole season, and their season didn't go the way they wanted to go because they're not in the big dance, right? Not in the playoffs or that national championship, a shot at being a national championship. And they still would get bashed. And
I used to be in that same camp until Jake Butt got hurt. And you look at how much money that man lost, or heck, Jalen Smith when he was at Notre Dame as a linebacker.
Yeah, Ole Miss quarterback. I'm thinking.
Matt Corral.
Yeah, Matt Corral.
Yeah, his career never was the same. And it's funny to me. We talk about these conference championships games, which should be eliminated, but also a lot of these bowl games, man. I mean, they just have no value in my opinion. And this is a kid who used to sit down and I would go get splitters from Radio Shack and plug up as many TVs as I could to watch, 4 or 5 bowl games at once. But now I don't even care anymore. And college football is my favorite thing on earth. So I'm just like, how could the common fan care if I don't care?
Brian, wait, I got to jump in there. Hold on a second. Brian, you grew up dreaming of playing in Detroit in the Little Caesars Bowl or the Quick Lane. I mean, there are kids across the country that want to spend their December in Detroit playing at Ford Field. I mean, come on.
Hey, Brian, I got one more question for you here, and this is this is about the leader. You think about the national championship teams. You had Craig Krenzel, you had Cardell Jones or whoever, but with that was kind of a different situation with having the third string quarterback playing. But I got to be honest, when they went out and we knew they were going to get somebody from the portal because McCord was checking out for whatever reason. We're not gonna talk about him today. But they really targeted Will Howard. And, I know that Ryan Day knows more about football than me, so I trusted him, but I was skeptical. I got to be honest, the more I watch him play, the more that I hear him talk, the more I like him. And the more I believe in him. Do you believe in him? And do you think that this is a kid that can take him to the promised land?
Yeah, I think he definitely has the correct head on his shoulders to kind of get the job done and win a national championship. Obviously, he has some limitations to his game, right? He's not the best when it comes to deep balls. No, he doesn't have the strongest arm in the world. We talk about him running, and obviously he can run some, right? But he's still not like Jalen Monroe.
Yeah, he ain't Milrow out there.
But yeah, I think he's definitely. But the things he are like basically exceptional as being a leader, right? Making decisions, right? Obviously, he does a crazy thing once a game and kind of got to will himself back. But I think those two things, though, the decision making that he has to kind of go under in our offense and making decisions and kind of get and knowing when to pull the ball, when to hand the ball, how to kind of look guys off and kind of hit a guy for big plays when he can. I think he's doing those things exceptional. And then obviously, he's just a phenomenal leader, right? I mean, like you say, the way he plays with energy and emotion, when he shows his emotion, what is he saying in the media? How is he answering questions? How do you see his demeanor out there on the field? Second to none, right? When it comes to college football, that's the guy you want to go out there and play for and give it all for and give yourself an opportunity to win it all. Obviously, when it comes to a national championship, you want to be the best team. You want to be the most talented team and have all these guys and different things. But when it comes down to the ball, kind of has to bounce your way, right?
Yeah.
So it's the point. Every point, in a close game with talent is kind of equal for the most part. Things kind of have to happen your way. And I feel like when a guy like that, a leader like that, he's going to try to will it and kind of make that ball bounce our way because he's going to give it all he got for us to give us a chance to win. Even the game we lost, right? I mean, you could tell he was making the right decision. It just was a second half a step too long, and we kind of get a chance to kick a field goal to win that game. So I think Will Howard's doing fantastic. Obviously, it's football, so we pray that he stays healthy, and we continue to figure it out on the offensive line. Keep having guys go out there and fight hard. And if we don't have a guy that can pass block Abdul Carter, we don't ask him to do so, right?
Maybe a little chip. Maybe a little chip from the back there.
Hey, don't forget about Jordan Birch at Oregon, too.
Hey, I will say this now. TreVeyon Henderson is one of the best pass pro running back. I mean, you talk about the speed of this kid. You talk about the shiftiness of this kid. His pass blocking might be one of the best I've seen out of a running back. You know more about pass blocking than I do.
Yeah.
What do you think about this kid?
It's been fantastic. I mean, I'm throwing myself under the bus. In previous years, he didn't used to do this. Like,
no,
it's like we used to kind of almost in passing situations, almost like he kind of had to come off the field so we could put another guy out there that actually kind of gonna go out there and put the emphasis in making that block. But not this year. I mean, these guys are just kind of playing out of his mind. Especially, I think him and Judkins have basically made him step his game up. And everything is just not going to be finesse and home run balls and things of that nature that you're going to have to actually go out there and be physical. And I mean, we're seeing it, right? I mean, I think there's fantastic blocks every week, him hitting guys and pitting them down, right? I mean, really taking it to him because we know he has that strength and power to do so, but you have to be, that's a thing that you have to be willing to do, all right, when it comes to it. And this year he's willing to do it. Definitely let his play kind of be the example for the team when it comes to doing that and stepping up and taking on guys. And it's just fantastic to see. And I just feel that's one thing. We talk about Will Howard being a leader. That's a leader of a guy that's been a Buckeye and been here in the program and know how much this season means to get things right in the big games against the team up north in a shot at being a Big Ten champion and national championship. What better way to demonstrate it than go out there and put that on film every week?
No, there's no doubt, man. And they, these kids all came back for a reason. They didn't come back to make more NIL money or to, whatever. They came back to win, and I think it's showing up. And Bryant, man, we appreciate you coming on with us so much today. I love your guys' show. Tell everybody a little bit about how they can check out you and Chimdy doing your thing.
So our show is Believe in Buckeyes. Pretty simple. Believe is BLEAV. It's at the bottom here at the other tag. But Believe in Buckeyes. We're on YouTube, Spotify, the Apple Podcast, wherever you want to call it. But we're on all the platforms. Feel free to tap in. We just love a couple former Buckeyes talking about Buckeyes. We like to say we talk about what happened, right? We're not fishing for news and things of that nature. We're going to talk about what actually took place and our opinions and feelings towards it. So it's a fun show, not very long. I think we're going to go usually 25, 30 minutes. So tap in if you're interested. Sure.
All right, man. We'll definitely be checking that out. And thank you so much for coming on today. And hopefully we can talk to you again real soon. Okay, buddy?
Oh, yeah. That's right. All right, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Brian.
With an OH, guys.
I love it, man. Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.
All right. We'll talk to you real soon, Brian.
See you later, Brian.
All right, man. That was Bryant Browning, former captain of the Ohio State Buckeyes, offensive guard, all Big Ten academic football player out of Cleveland, Glenville High School, who, God, that has got to be one of the most productive high schools in all of
It's a factory.
Troy Smith, Teddy Ginn, Bryant. I mean, there's Robert Rose. You can go down the list. Jamario O'Neal. There's been so many guys that have come out of that school. Dante Whitner. I mean, just nonstop talent coming out of that high school program. And Bryant was one of them. And Bryant was a great football player. And he's even a better guy, man. I love talking to him and hearing him break it down. He's just a straight shooter. And obviously played for the Buckeyes for 4+ years. So he knows what's up in college football. And I enjoyed hearing him talk today. James, before we get out of here, what are you looking forward to next week? What is the game or the teams that you're really keeping your eye on? I guess for, what are we in, week 12 now?
Well, honestly, it's like every time I look at games, there's always somebody that craps the bed and we're sitting there talking about it over the top. I mean, obviously we're going to be really headquartering on Georgia and Tennessee next week, but which Georgia team shows up? Is Nico hurt? I mean, it feels like we're in a soap opera, like waiting to see what the next cliffhanger is going to be till next week. But I mean, it's week to week. It's been so crazy this year. And maybe that's beneficial with the playoff. That gets us talking more.
Yeah, I agree. And, there's no game besides Tennessee and Georgia that really sticks out to me for next week. But, there's games that weird things could happen, right? Texas, Arkansas, Utah, Colorado. There's weird things.
Kansas, BYU. I mean,
yeah. Boston College, SMU.
SMU.
I mean, it wouldn't shock me to see BC come out and give them a tough game. I'm not saying they're going to win, but stranger things have happened. So yeah, it should be pretty nuts, and we'll be back here to break it all down. So it's college football 101 right here, buddy. And this is going to be the first time we're ever going to have a 12-team playoff, and I'm really looking forward to getting into the nuts and bolts of it and, telling our listeners, we're going to study that over the next couple of weeks, how the playoff is going to be structured and what it's going to take for a team to go from round one to the national championship. So be thinking about that, and we'll break that down for everybody, as we come to the end of the season here. But I think we're all in agreement. The conference championship shit needs to go.
Oh, it's got to go. It's just got to go.
Well, these teams are going to get punished for playing in the conference championship. Again, some teams may lose their third game and be out. Some teams may drop down where they lose, a home, a bye or a home game. And it's just not fair to punish teams for losing a meaningless game.
Well, not only that, someone could get hurt.
Yeah, that too.
And now, we got to think about these guys at the next level. I mean, I know the fans don't want to, but this is their livelihood.
Yeah. Well, it's astonishing to me that we haven't seen more injuries, honestly. And I think it's down the stretch. It's going to come down to, in my opinion, who's the healthiest team and who's playing the best. So who's got their quarterback, who's got their running back, who's got their best defensive player, and, who's hitting on all cylinders in the month of December. And that's what we're going to have to pay attention to as we go out.
Well, until then.
Yes, sir. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. This is Man Coverage brought to you by National Streaming Sports Network, BetUs.com, SeatGeek.com. Go to SeatGeek.com and use promo code NSS. Get you $20 off. And definitely go to @ManCoverage2075 check out our show, subscribe, and eat it up, man. We've had some great guests up there. Some of the greatest college football players of all time have joined our show. Go check it out as we rip out the interviews from each one and post them for everybody to check out. Have a good one, James.
Use that code to go to the Indiana-Ohio State game in 2 weeks, baby.
$20 off. Go watch it and enjoy
got
it. Go up to Wrigley Field and check out the Buckeyes versus Northwestern next week. Should be a rolling, but at least you can go check out Wrigley and see the Ivy or some shit.
You got it.
All right, bud. Take it easy.